From the Territorial Statehouse State Park Museum in Fillmore, Utah, you're listening to
the weekly voice of the Old Capitol Storytelling Festival.
Brought to you by the Friends of the Territorial Statehouse and Utah Pioneer Heritage Arts.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Old Capitals podcast. This is your host, Brianna Smith. Today, I am sitting down with Scott Bassett, and we are actually in the Topaz Museum today, so I'm very excited to be interviewing him. Scott, will you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. I'm Scott Bassett. I was born in the Delta Hospital, and I grew up on a farm in Sutherland, Utah, about 6 miles north and west of Delta. I went to school at Delta Elementary, graduated from Delta High School in 1972, and from there I went to the University of Utah. Graduated from the University of Utah in 1976, and got married.
Okay.
1978, and my wife Claudia and I have 4 children. They, 3 of the boys live right here in Millard County.
Oh, how fun.
That's great. We appreciate the fact that they do. It's fun to have the grandchildren close by. And our daughter lives in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, so she's a bit away. We have 17 grandchildren.
Holy cow.
We are both recently retired from the Millard County School District.
Okay. And what did you do with the school district? I
began as a 4th grade teacher.
Okay.
I also taught 2nd grade and 1st grade. I was a principal for 18 years at Delta North Elementary.
And then, side note, he was a principal for my husband. So
yes, good old Cody.
Feel a little bit bad for him, but
no, Cody was a great kid. And I loved that. That was probably the highlight of my career. And then I ended my career as Director of Curriculum and Student Services for the Millard County School District.
Oh, wow. And what did your wife do with the school district?
She first began as an instructional assistant at Delta South Elementary, and then she served as the secretary at Delta South Elementary also.
Oh, wow. And so you were both born and raised in Delta?
Actually, my wife was born in Salt Lake.
Okay.
She grew up her first 8 years in Kearns, Utah.
Okay.
And then she moved to Rangeley, Colorado.
Oh, wow.
And graduated from Rangeley High School. And she said it wasn't too hard to move to Delta from Rangeley because the geography was about the same, and there were a few more amenities in Delta than there were in Rangeley.
Oh, wow. That's saying something. Delta doesn't have very many amenities, so that's awesome. So how did you guys meet?
We met on an LDS mission.
Okay.
We both served in the Belgium-Brussels mission.
Oh, wow.
Which took in the southern part of Belgium and the northern part of France. And when I got off the train in my first city, she was a sister in that city, and she gave me a Côte d'Or candy bar, and I always said it was love at first bite.
That is awesome. That is so funny. So you went to school, and I heard that you were given a project that kind of intrigued your passion for the Topaz Museum and Delta and the history behind that.
That's correct. I was either a sophomore or junior at the University of Utah. It was in 1974, and I was taking a graduate class from Dr. Everett Cooley, and it was on Utah history. And we were instructed that we needed to do a project on some form of aspect of Utah history.
Right.
And he told us, he said, if you're not sure what to do the report on, he said, come visit with me after class. I might have some ideas for you. So I did. I went up and said, Dr. Cooley, I'm not sure. Do you have an idea for me? And he said, well, aren't you the boy from Delta? And I said, yeah, I'm the boy from Delta. And he said, we'll do it on Topaz. And I said, oh, okay. And I came home that weekend and I asked my mother, I said, I'm supposed to do a report on Topaz for my Utah history project. And she said, oh, that's great. And I said, what can you say about Topaz Mountain? She laughed and she says, oh, not Topaz Mountain. He wants you to do it on Topaz. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, we have a Topaz barn that we bought after the war was over. And, I danced with the Topaz soldiers. I said, Mother, what are you talking about? And she said, well, there was a camp here during World War II for the Japanese Americans. And it was at Topaz, Utah. And I said, where is Topaz, Utah? And she said, it's about 6 miles from here, from our farm.
And you had no idea.
I had no idea. I had never been taught a thing about it in schools.
Is crazy.
And that kind of drove me crazy being an educator myself.
No, I would imagine so. And so you went on and you did this project. And it just sparked something?
I did. I did it, and interestingly enough, I found out that it was my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, who was instrumental in acquiring the land and the water, and so the sale to the government for the land of Topaz was all negotiated by my grandfather and my uncle. And I'm going, oh my word, this is a little bit closer to home than I even thought.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to be able to interview Grace Ishida from the Salt Lake area.
Okay.
Lovely woman. She was a teenager when she was in camp. She told me a lot about her life experiences. And she actually went with me and Barry Newbold, who used to be the superintendent of the Jordan School District. She would go with us to schools and present the story of Topaz, and she would share her experiences. So I just kind of got it under my skin, I guess, and I loved
just became a part of you.
It became a part of me.
That is awesome. So tell me a little bit about your mom's stories with the Topaz camp. I couldn't think of the word. Oh my goodness.
No, that's great. Well, I just remember hearing as a child that she had gone to a dance, and they used to have dances in Billy Van's Hall, which is downtown. It was the second story of the Van Hall, and it was a premier dancing hall in the state of Utah. I mean, there were big bands there and everything, and during the war she went there and she would dance with the soldiers. I remember vaguely hearing a story that she had danced with Topaz Soldier, and Dad, she was married at the time and had a little girl, and my dad told her, come on, Beulah, it's time to go home. And she said, no, I'm not through dancing. And so he left her at the dance. And she was just going to get a hotel room, and she walked downstairs where the cafe was, and her brother had seen this whole thing transpire. So he and his wife were in the cafe, and they decided that they had better stay there so that they so she had something to fall back on. And so she went downstairs, and he took her home, and Dad had already taken the babysitter home, and he was sound asleep. And then, as was typical for my parents, they probably didn't talk for a week or two. But then they got over it. So
that's so funny. She just wanted to dance the night away.
That's
I can't
right.
blame her.
She did.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about your role in the museum today.
Okay. For about the last 10 years, I'm not sure exactly when, but I was asked to join the Topaz Museum board, a board that had been operating for probably about 10 years. And shortly thereafter, I was asked to be the secretary. Oh, wow. So I am the secretary of the Topaz Museum board. And so as a board, we function. We, like, for example, we organized and executed the grand opening in July of this year. We have a lot of fundraisers for various projects that we have. We are just getting ready right now because we've got the museum open and running, which was our big goal for a long time. And that's where we're putting all of our energies. But now we realize it's kind of time to move on to phase 2 and what do we do next? So that's kind of where we're at.
Well, it is a beautiful museum. If you haven't been, you need to come to Delta. It's fantastic. What can you tell the audience about their experience that they will have when they come visit the Topaz Museum in Delta?
Okay, we really do invite you. We'd love to have tourists, and we have great tourists from all over the world, but we especially love the ones from Utah that are local. When you first come in, we ask you, of course, to sign our guest book and let us know. We chat with you a little bit about where you're from, why you were interested in coming to the museum. Sometimes we have people mistake it for a rock museum because, of course, Topaz is a gem.
Right.
And they'll walk in and they'll say, oh, this isn't a rock museum, and turn around and walk out. But some of them will go, oh, this is better than a rock museum.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for sitting down with me today. And huge thanks to all of you for tuning into the Old Capitals podcast. Come take a trip to Delta and visit Scott at the Topaz Museum. And make sure to tune in next time. Come to think of it, I would love to hear more. Would you mind coming back for a second episode?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
Awesome. Well, make sure to tune in next time.
Subscribe to our podcast at oldcapitalstoryfest.com. That's capital CAPITOL. Visit our website to dive deeper into our weekly stories and to find other folks who love history, heritage, and modern pioneering. And join us next week to meet another friend and hear another story.
I'm still here where stories never end.